An employee can make an unfair dismissal claim if they've been employed for longer than 6 months or 12 months if they are employed by a small business employer and they've earned less than the high income threshold. The high income threshold goes up every year, so it's important to check.
The more objective criteria for making such a claim is that you have been dismissed in a manner which is harsh, unjust or unfair. And then the Fair Work Act sets out a criteria for determining whether that has happened.
An employee has been unfairly dismissed if their employment came to an end for a different reason other than natural termination. So, for example, if the dismissal was harsh, unjust or unreasonable. If the employer was a small business employer and the dismissal was inconsistent with the Small Business Fair Dismissal Code.
The key difference is that the Small Business Fair Dismissal Code applies to small businesses and makes it a little bit easier for them when it comes to dismissing their employees. So if an employee has been employed by a small business employer for under 12 months, they're not eligible to make an unfair dismissal claim, whereas for ordinary employers with greater than 15 employees, that period is only 6 months.
So the next question is naturally what and when is a dismissal harsh, unjust or unreasonable? So when considering whether dismissal was harsh, unjust or unreasonable, an employee should consider whether there was actually a valid reason for their dismissal related to their capacity or conduct, how they were performing at work, and whether the person was notified of that reason, because depending on what award you're covered by, there's usually a criteria to consult with the employee, and also whether the person was given the opportunity to respond.
There's a whole other range of criteria in the Fair Work Act extending to matters that the Court or the Fair Work Commission deems to be relevant. So really it's a matter of going in and saying, was the dismissal objectively harsh, unfair or unjust, using the criteria set out for you. It's quite a simple process. So just to get things started, to lodge a application with the Fair Work Commission, you have to get it done within 21 days, but it's a matter of filling out a form. In that form, you'll set out your details, the details of your employment, and the reasons why you say you were unfairly dismissed. It's not a long form, and it's quite detailed in what it does. Once you've completed that form, you send that by email to the Fair Work Commission. You pay a small fee of, at the moment, it's less than $100, and the Fair Work Commission will get things going for you.
The employer will then have an opportunity to respond, and the case may proceed to a hearing. If a resolution cannot be reached, the 21-day time frame is a strict limitation period, and there are not many circumstances where an employee can extend this period for compliance.
In unfair dismissal cases, the Fair Work Commission takes the role of mediator, judge, court. They hear the arguments from each party. They'll put you on a teleconference with each other and they'll try to convince the parties to negotiate a settlement to the claim. And then if a settlement can't be reached, the matter will go before the tribunal, or the Fair Work Commission, I should say, and it'll be heard as if you were going to court for an ordinary litigation claim.
If the Fair Work Commission finds that an employee has been unfairly dismissed, it has the power to order the employer to reinstate the employee, compensate the employee for lost wages, or take any other appropriate action to remedy the unfairness.
Procedural fairness, it's quite a broad term, but it's the term given to the employer needing to treat the employee fairly throughout the process of terminating their employment or deciding whether their employment should be terminated. So, for example, where an employee is alleged to have engaged in misconduct, the employer should investigate that allegations of misconduct and determine whether the misconduct actually occurred. Where it is said that the employee is underperforming and is likely to be terminated as a result, the employer should sit down with the employee, warn them of the underperformance, discuss performance improvement plans, just follow a fair process to allow the employee to fully understand and respond to what's happening at all times.
It also promotes transparency and accountability in the dismissal process. It is really important in unfair dismissal cases because a dismissal may be considered unfair if the employer did not follow proper procedures.
Yes. So the one that is discussed quite often is the right for a employee who is being terminated to bring a support person with them to meetings and discussions about the termination of their employment. Other examples of procedural fairness include giving an employee the right to respond to allegations about their performance or conduct, and giving the employee an opportunity to understand where they have been underperforming and rectify that underperformance before being terminated.
So if an employee's dismissal is found to be unfair, the Fair Work Commission may order reinstatement or compensation. The Fair Work Commission can make orders for a person's reinstatement by returning them to the position they were in immediately before the dismissal, or a position suitable and comparable to the position they were in immediately also before the dismissal. They may also make orders to maintain the continuity of a person's employment, and or make orders to remunerate the person for the amount they've lost or likely to lose because of the dismissal. However, the Fair Work Commission can only make orders to compensate the unfairly dismissed employee if they find that reinstatement of the employee is inappropriate. This may occur when there's a breakdown in relationship, and that's just not possible. So the amount which the person will be compensated is determined by a number of factors.
The compensation is typically calculated with reference to the amount of loss that the employee has suffered or is likely to suffer. So the most frequently considered element of that is how long is the employee unemployed between losing their job and regaining new employment. There are a number of other factors considered into that, but that's the most important part.
Another thing to consider is the maximum compensation that the Commission can award under an unfair dismissal claim is 6 months remuneration.